before we dive into the science aspect of classification, we're going to be talking a little bit more about classification in general. So what better way to give an example than to use us? So we're going to talk about the classroom and all you students for a minute. Now, here's a scenario I want you to think about. If I was trying to classify you or sort you into different groups, what are some things that I could use to sort you? Just think about that for a second. There's a lot of different things you could do. I think the easiest one, or the one that pops into my brain first, is gender. So if I asked all the boys to stand up and go to the left side of the room, then they would all go to the left, and then get all the girls to stand up and go to the right side of the room. Those two groups, boys and girls, would be a way that I could classify you. So that would be using gender. There's definitely some other ones. That's a characteristic. Another characteristic we could do is maybe what color shirt you're wearing. So we could have everyone in the class stand up and find people with their same color shirt on. So all the navy people would come over to me. We could have a group of people with red shirts. We could have a group of people with green shirts and yellow shirts. And we could classify people into a lot of different groups that way. But that would be a characteristic that we would use to classify. There's also a few other ones. So you could use preference, right? We could talk about your favorite subject in school. We could do favorite sports. But those are some ways that we in the classroom could classify ourselves, just using characteristics and our preferences. Now, so we did one in the classroom. Let's talk about one outside of the classroom. I want you to think about maybe ways people in different areas in society classify things to make it easier for us. Because that's what classification is for anyways. It's to make things easier. Did everyone think of one? All right, so the thing that I think about is, let's see, okay, so you go into the grocery store, right? And the first thing you see is this produce section. All right, you see the produce section, and then you walk a little further and you see the meat section. And then you go all the way around and you see the frozen section. Those three different sections are all ways that the grocery store classifies the food so that it's easier for us to navigate when we're going grocery shopping. That's definitely a way that in society we use classification. Another way is, and I know y'all all are gonna love this one, if your mom and dad ever ask you to do the dishes, you might have to classify or sort the different utensils into your drawer. So you would put the forks in one area and the spoons in one area and the knives in the other area. That would be a way that you classify those utensils to make it easier when you need to go get one later. So now we'll throw in the science component. So everyone has this ability to classify. We can classify for anything we do. We use classification in all sorts of areas to make our lives a little bit easier. And so it really shouldn't shock us that scientists do the same thing. They have all these organisms that they don't know what to do with, and so they decided to use these things called dichotomous keys to classify different organisms based on those characteristics. Now, today at the end of class, you are going to be able to successfully classify and identify different organisms using these dichotomous keys. But before we break off and work in groups, I want to give you an example. So here is my example today. It is a dichotomous key of white wildflowers. Now, I know this is a really pretty drawing, but we're going to use this picture of this white wildflower to classify and to figure out what its name is. So the way that you use dichotomous keys, every time you'll start at the very top. So it says 1A and 1B. And by each of those things, it has a characteristic. So we're talking about petals with the wildflowers. So here we go. We're going to read 1A. 1A says 5 petals, and then 1B says 7 petals. So we're going to go back to our picture, our beautiful picture of our white wildflower, and we're going to count the petals. and you'll notice that it has 5 petals. So we recognize that 1A is correct. So we're going to go all the way to the right. Ready? 5 petals all the way to the right. And it says go to 2. Go to number 2. So we're on this side of the dichotomous key. It's either going to tell you the name or it's going to give you an action to do. So in this case, we're going to 2. We have 2A and we have 2B. 2A says petals are single pieces. And then 2B says petals are deeply divided. So we're going to, again, go back to that picture and we're going to see, is it single pieces or is it deeply divided? And if you notice, they are single pieces. There's no ridges or there's no piece, like multiple pieces of these petals. So we're going to go right here. We notice that petals, single pieces is correct. So we're going to go all the way to the right again, and it says go to 3. And so we're going to go to 3. 3 says wide, round petals. 3B says narrow, elongated petals. So again, it's going further, more in detail about those petals. So we're going to look at our picture again, and we notice that those petals are narrow and elongated. So this one would be correct. And if you go all the way to the right again, instead of it saying go to something else, this time it says Bowman's root. And so we have classified this white wildflower as Bowman's root using all these characteristics. And so just like we did right there, we just classified that white wildflower based on characteristics that the dichotomous key gives us. You are going to go into your groups and you're going to use the dichotomous keys at your tables and the organisms at your tables to classify them using that dichotomous key. Remember, before you do this, remember that you have to start at the top and then go all the way to the right and follow that action before you find your name of your organism.